welcome back. This is the final section of Module 2 of Fundamentals of Project Design. In Section 1, we have looked at meal requirement. We have looked at Section 2, understanding issues. Section 3, we have looked at designing approach. Section 4, we have looked at analyzing assumptions and risk. And in this final part, we are going to look at gender integration into the project. All right, let's see what we expect in this section. We are going to look at define some terms like what is gender, especially according to this course. We are going to look at gender awareness. How can a project be either gender aware or gender blind? Why is it having that? And also we are going to look at the levels of gender awareness. We are going to look at gender in the project design, like gender analysis in design, gender analysis in result, and gender analysis in activities of our project. Then we are going to look at examples of gender integration with our project of Kenya Youth Employment and Skills Program, and then we are going to have a section quiz. All right, so all the donors and all the missionaries have gender strategies. Some of these missionaries and donors have the gender strategies which for example have a specific objective that focuses on gender integration. Some do not have this specific objective of gender integration, but they want gender to be integrated in all the activities, results, and goal of the project. All right, so every project, whether either having the specific gender objective or they try to integrate gender, will try to have gender sensitivity in its project. Integrating gender throughout the program involves identifying and addressing gender issues like gender inequalities that could arise in the project implementation. So when you are working with gender in your project, you try to identify the cultures, the political leadership, and everything that involving around gender, and try to address the inequalities that might arise while you are implementing your project, because this, if you are not going to foresee and try to implement fairness, then your result will be your project will be having a biased result and you might not able to reach your goal. To help mitigate inequalities in the gender, we are going to use gender lens, that is try to deeply investigate the gender issues when you consider all part of your project. All right, for example, how might activities affect men and women differently? For example, if you are dealing with a meeting and then you can have a meeting at night, then how could that affect these two groups? Would men and women answer question differently if the other sex is present or not present? So the presence of one gender might affect how another gender will respond to a specific question. For example, if you're asking how many times do you have your maybe monthly mens, and some people might have hormonal imbalances and have issues with their mens, then you might not get the right answer. This is an assumption, just an assumption, when another gender is in there. So there are those issues that arises within gender, and that is why you have to use your gender lens at every stage of your project to avoid imbalances, inequalities, and bias outcome of your project. So Again, for the purpose of this course, we are going to define gender as a culturally defined set. It is a culture of defined set of economic, social, and political roles, responsibilities, rights, entitlements, obligations, and expectations associated with being male and female, as well as power relations between and among men and women, boys and girls. Remember, this gender can vary according to culture and also can change over time. So it has to be in the context of your country or country you're dealing with and the community you're dealing with. And also you have to take the aspect of race and the aspect of age, because it is varying every time, and your project should be adapting to all the changes that will happen to gender throughout your project life cycle. So it is, we have said, it is a set of economic, political, and social roles, responsibilities, rights, entitlements, obligations, and expectations associated with being male and female, as well as power relations between and among men and women and boys and girls. So when we are saying this in a simple term, we are putting like, what do economically expected from you, for example, being a woman or being a man who is the provider for the family. And if you fail to provide for the family, how does the culture judges you? And what is your right as a man in the family? What is your right as a man in politics? And then what does culture gives you in social stance? What does culture obliges you to do? Does the culture tells you to be submissive to your husband or your wife? Is there anything of the sort? Obligations, expectations, what is expected from you, rights, and also the power relations. How do you share power, and how do you involve in the decision making, all right, and leadership by being a man or a woman? How does that differ? So that is generally definition of culture, and it is important throughout your project life cycle to be gender aware and gender fair. In our next class, we are going to look at what is the difference between gender equalities and gender equities. Enjoy learning.